Welcome to the Teaching Your Toddler show. Today's very special guest is Linn Knight, who is a parenting expert and a former elementary school teacher. She's also a certified positive discipline educator and a certified mindfulness meditation teacher. She is also a mother of two. You can find out all about her and her free resources at her website, Linn, Linn, Knight, KNIGHT.com. Stay tuned for all of her amazing ideas to go from crazy to calm. Hello, this is Marijo Tinlin from Teaching Your Toddler, and this morning we have a very special guest, Linn Knight, and she is going to talk to us about some parenting techniques that she has for us. So Laura, welcome to the show. Please tell us a little bit about you.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. So I was an elementary school teacher for many years. I taught kindergarten and first grade, and then I had my own two children. And I thought, to be quite honest, that I would have the upper hand maybe in parenting just because I had so much experience with working with kids, and I would have 25 children, really on their best behavior every day. And so when my toddler, my son, my oldest, turned 3, he went through that three-nager phase that we hear about.
I've never heard that.
He started trying to hit me, and I was just honestly shocked, if I'm really telling the truth. And I didn't have the tools, and I would vacillate between trying to be really, really calm about it and then getting angry and yelling at him, which didn't feel good for him and really didn't feel good for me. I would have that mommy guilt and shame after. And so that's when I started my quest on just learning new parenting tools as a young mother of how do I support my two children? What tools do I need? I became certified as a positive discipline educator. I got my mindfulness and meditation credential, and I just went deeper into the world of parent education for myself and then educating others because I really needed it because it's hard. Toddlers are hard.
Yes, they're a challenge for sure.
But they're so sweet and really fun.
Yes, and they have those cute moments so that we continue to love them.
Yes, they do.
Tell me a little bit about, did you have any like conflicts between your practical experience as a teacher versus what you started to learn in your training that you did after becoming a mom?
It's such a different environment in the classroom. You learn a lot of tools being a teacher, and it's a wonderful opportunity with working with kids, and I love being a teacher. But when they're at home, that's where all their big feelings that they were holding on to often during the school day come out. And so at home, it's really a child's safe place to express their emotions. And the more expressive they are, actually, the more connected they feel. So it's a good thing. Like if your child is coming to you and having these meltdowns and kind of allowing themselves to really break down, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just shows that they feel really safe at home. But I didn't understand that in the beginning, and I didn't have the tools to navigate both their big, big feelings and my own big feelings, which were a reaction to, what felt very chaotic.
Absolutely. That's an interesting thing that I don't think people would think about, is that as a teacher, you may not see their genuine self, right? They may be hiding what they genuinely feel because, they don't want to act out in the classroom or whatever. And so that's an interesting variance or difference that you saw once you became a mom, to see what you call those big feelings, right?
Yeah, and at school they're distracted. There's a lot going on. It's very routine based. They really are focused on, I taught first grade and kindergarten, so, reading and letters and sounds. And at home, we don't have that same kind of built-in structure throughout the day. And so there's also a lot more time, especially if you have more than one kid, for sibling rivalry, for arguments to arise. You're trying to feed them and clothe them and do a lot of things that they don't necessarily find fun.
Exactly.
And you have to navigate that too.
That's great. I think that's a great segue into what we I really want to talk about today is those really good calming techniques that you've learned, and so help us know a little bit about what do you do, and what were the techniques that you found that have worked the best for when it is, like the sibling rivalry, like you said, or when you're trying to get them to do something that isn't fun that they need to do, or when they're melting down. So what are some of those techniques you can help with us share with us? Sorry.
Yes. So now my work is being a parent educator and a mindfulness and meditation teacher, which I kind of bring into both. And so when I work with families, we talk first and foremost about being able to regulate our own emotions, because that's really the most important thing that we as a parent, when we are feeling overwhelmed. So if we think about our brain, we have our prefrontal cortex. That's our rational decision making part of our brain. That would be called the upstairs part of the brain. And then you have the lower reptilian brain. And that is where your amygdala lives. And your amygdala is part of fight, flight, freeze. So your little sweet, beautiful toddler, their prefrontal cortex will not be developed until they're about 25 years old. And so they live in more of that reptilian brain often. And we need to help be their prefrontal cortex. We need to help do this thinking for them in a way, which means we need our prefrontal cortex, not to get too sciencey here, but we need that to be online. So what do we do when we're feeling really overwhelmed? And that's the first step that I help parents with in creating a calm environment. I often make a pause poster with them, and that's where you sit down and you brainstorm things like, I can go in the other room and take a deep breath when I'm overwhelmed. I can turn on my favorite song. I can play the game rock, paper, scissors with my child. Do you remember that game from growing up?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. So that is one of the best tools I can give parents because it will calm you down, and it always calms children down too because they're in their body, they're playing rock, paper, scissors, go, and then making the different hand movements.
Oh
But
my
just
gosh,
finding a
that is so great. We've always done it to make decisions or whatever, or playing
oh
games
yeah.
in like the car, but I love it as a calming technique. That's fantastic.
Yes, I love incorporating somatic body work with children. So, what that really means is just letting them be in their body because that's going to, again, help regulate their brain. So, I make that poster, I hang it in the house, and when I'm overwhelmed, I model, I'm feeling overwhelmed right now. I'm going to go pick one of these tools. Maybe my child would like to participate with me. Maybe they're too unregulated and they can't. But first and foremost, I need to regulate myself. And then I can go to the next step, which is reconnecting with a child who is having a meltdown or having a tantrum. And reconnection looks like, I see you're upset. It's acknowledging their feelings. It's offering a hug, maybe playing rock, paper, scissors, asking them if they'd like to give you a hug. Sometimes just changing the language will help. And then once I am calm, I've reconnected, then I can follow up with whatever lesson. I think it was important for me to learn. It's important in the parents I work with that you don't have to correct the behavior immediately. There's time later when your child can actually hear you.
That's a really good point, right? They're just so keyed up. They're so like outside of their body, like you said, that they
Mhm.
just they it can't even register what you're trying to get them to do, right?
Yeah, they can't retain it. So when my little 3-year-old was angry and he wanted to hit me, I wanted to tell him that's absolutely not okay. And then he couldn't hear it. And then I'm mad that he can't hear it, right? And now I'm in a power struggle because it takes two to be in a power struggle. But instead, if we say, I'm going to pause, I'm going to get myself calmed down. I see that you're really, really angry. Hitting is not okay, but I see that you're really angry, helping their little brain and nervous system calm down. And then later saying, what could you do next time when you're feeling angry? And really problem solving with that. And then let's practice that. Let's pretend you're angry now. I really love to role play, especially with toddlers. Let's pretend you're really angry. What could you do? And then, oh, I could hit a pillow. I could go into my special space where I have kinetic sands and I can play with that. I can blow bubbles in the backyard. So we're really teaching them, because that's our ultimate goal as parents, right? We're trying to raise responsible, kind human beings.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And that as when they're little like that and they're just so overwhelmed and they're laying on the ground and they're screaming their head off, like how can you sort of I mean, is it okay to just let them lay there and scream?
Absolutely. It's okay to let them lay there and scream. And depending on the temperament of your child, you'll kind of gauge whether they'd like to have alone time while they scream, or whether you sit outside the door, or whether you have a hand on their back while they scream. And it's also what you can do as a parent. Some parents are able to sit and be in the space where their child is screaming, and some parents it's too overwhelming for them. And so they need to say, I'm going to go in the other room and take a quick break, and then I'll be back. Let them know that you're going to come back, calm yourself down if you need to, and then just hold space for them to have those big feelings and let them know, I'm here. I hear your big feelings. You're really upset. You're super disappointed. I understand that. And sometimes that's enough just for
Mm,
them to feel heard. To
right.
and then they'll, the tantrum will subside quicker.
Oh, that's great. What about what happens if you're in the store or you're at a museum or like what happens when you're out somewhere?
Absolutely. I think that when you're in a store or a museum, what I feel as a parent and other parents that I've worked with is we feel embarrassed immediately. Like, ooh, I don't want to have the kid that's screaming here, and I feel like I need to remove them from the situation immediately. But the truth is there's so many parents walking around every day, and we've all been there. When we see a screaming child, our heart goes out to the parent because we're like, ooh, we've been there before.
Right.
Uh, and it's okay if your child needs to have that meltdown and you happen to be in public, if you can kind of get them to a place off to the side where it's not quite as disruptive. With my daughter, when she was little, it worked for me. I would pick her up and we would try and kind of go outside. So maybe just leave the shopping cart or go if there was an outside area of the museum. And I would just point out, I see a tree, I see a, the ground, I see a car, I see a bird. So I'm bringing them back, I'm bringing their awareness back into the moment. I'm helping them get from that lower part again of their brain up into their rational thinking brain.
That's great. My when my son was really small, he would say, "Tell me happy things," and I would just talk about like puppies or ice cream or whatever, and like that
Yes.
just kind of helped him like think of other things, when he was scared or angry or whatever.
I love that. And I love that he had that awareness through your parenting, that that was a tool for him that felt good and safe.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Good and safe. I like that. Well, that's fantastic. Those are amazing tools. What else? What do you talked about the pause poster for parents. What are some other things that moms can do to sort of help themselves calm down when they're like, oh my gosh, I'm a terrible mom, or like you said, you feel embarrassed or whatever? Like, how do you sort of, because you can't walk away from your kid like in that situation, but besides what you just talked about practically for the kid, what are some of the internal things that a mom needs to do too?
I think moms offer self compassion to ourselves in that moment where we can just put our hands on our heart, or we can think in our head, I'm trying my best. This is really hard. Almost the same language that you're using with your child. I see that you're angry. I see that you're upset. This is hard for you. We're using that in our own mind too. because it is really hard. And it's hard to have the child in that moment that's screaming. And I like to hold on to the vision of what are the goals that I want to see in my child when they're an adult? I want them to be kind, I want them to be respectful, these attributes and characteristics that I hope that they hold. And then I can remind myself in the moment that I'm helping them learn those tools. So even if they're screaming, in that moment where you're teaching your son to think of happy thoughts, or we're redirecting the behavior, or we're modeling empathy, all of those are going to create this foundational support so that when your child is an adult, they have these tools and characteristics that you hope for them. So, really, it's always an opportunity to learn and to teach. And when I keep that in my mind, it's easier to get through the more difficult moment of the now because I know there's a long range goal ahead of me.
Hmm. It's interesting. It's funny because when you're a first time mom and you're thinking about like potty training and you're thinking, when is this ever going to happen? Oh my gosh, right?
Yeah.
But then I was in a presentation once and someone said, okay, raise your hand if you're not potty trained. And of course, the whole room was like, whatever, right? And she said, look, it's going to happen, right? And so that's one of those things I think when our kids are so little and we're just like in the now and we're thinking this sucks, and then you're like, oh my gosh, it's not going to always be like that. They're not always going to be 3 years old. They're going to grow up. They're gonna go, they're going to be 19 someday. They're going to drive away in their car when they get their driver's license. You just got to keep those things in mind, and it's so hard, but it is one of those things, like you said, you got to look down the road a little ways.
Yes, and it's true. I mean, my son that I was referring to, the one that tried to hit me when he was 3, he's 8 years old now, and today is his last day of second grade. And I just literally was in tears this morning because I'm like, I'm so proud of this sweet, sensitive, kind boy that I have, and he reads and he writes and he has friends and he is potty trained and he's just but I remember in those moments when he was 3, just that pure terror of like, am I raising just the wrong kid? Like, how can am I doing it
Mm-hmm.
all wrong? And it's like, no, this is
Right.
natural. This is why they have terms like three major, or terrible twos. Like,
Right.
it's so common that they come up, everyone uses this language to describe the experience.
Yes. Yes. I've never heard the three-nager, but I love that. That is so funny. Of course, I've heard the terrible twos, and I've also heard of the effing fours. I won't say the word, but
Okay, I haven't heard that one yet.
Yes, and it's so funny. I heard that from a grandma, and then I observed it in my child, and I was like, wow, she knew. She had 5 kids. She gets it.
Oh,
But yeah,
yes.
that was funny. So yeah, I think that these are really great ways to help moms and again to help them with their parenting, but also them to help them with themselves. What else do you think we need to know, or what else does the audience need to hear from you?
Well, I would love to invite any parents that are looking for more calming tools to head over to my website because I'm actually going live today with calm cards that I created. And so they're cards that I offer for free, and you can just print them out from your computer. And the premise of them is that instead of yelling at your child, you can pause and reach for the cards, and there's simple movements or games that you can do with your child. So there is the rock, paper, scissors, which we talked about. There is taking belly breaths. So you find a stuffy and you put it on your tummy, and kids often think that's fun. And you watch the teddy bear, whatever stuffy it is, go slowly up and out, kind of give them a ride on their belly. But we, as the parents, know that's actually helping their nervous system calm down.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I use these with my daughter all the time. I have them printed out. My daughter's 6. I have them printed out, and then I also have a digital copy on my phone. And when she's really going into that place where I can see she's getting unregulated, I'll say, do you want to do one of those cards? And she's always like, yes, because they're fun. And so we'll pick a card and we'll do it together. And it will I mean, 99.9% of the time, it just de-escalates the situation. I've seen it for other parents too. And then again, later I can follow up with whatever teaching around the behavior I need to do.
Oh, that's amazing. That's great. That's great that they're free, and I will absolutely make sure that this link is in the show notes. We'll put your website on there as well. How else can people find you?
Yeah, so my website is the best way to find me right now. And then on my website, I also offer a weekly calming newsletter. So every Tuesday, I send out a newsletter and it has calming tips for you as the parent and practical tools. So I think last week's new newsletter was how to create a more calming home. The week before that, it was how to have a calming camping trip and do camping adventures with your children. We're a big camping family. And so I
Nice.
offer practical tools for parents and then also tools that directly support the teaching for your child. And then always some nice mindfulness quotes at the end just to help regroup and recenter. So that's
Oh,
another
that sounds
free
amazing.
resource that I offer.
What a great tool for people. Oh, wow. I wish I'd had those camping tips a while back because that used to be a big thing for our family too. And it can be kind of an adventure, you know?
It is. It's an adventure. And I have to say, it's one of our favorite things to do. We go camping about once a month. And in the beginning, I
Oh,
was kind of terrified, but now our family just, we look forward to those trips so much.
oh, that's fantastic. Great. Great, great. Well, thank you for these ideas, and we will absolutely make sure that these resources are available to the listeners, both on the teachingyourtoddler.com website as well as in the show notes of whatever platform you're listening to the show on. So, Laura, thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope someday we can have you back on the show and talk about more of these ideas for parents.
I would love that. Thank you so much.
Great.
Thank you for having
You
me.
bet.
And to any of the parents out there that are struggling right now, just, keep faith that it's going to get so much better.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Bye now. This has been the Teaching Your Toddler podcast with Marijo Tinlin. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you'll find us on our website at www.teachingyourtoddler.com, as well as on Facebook at Teaching Your Toddler, on Instagram, and on Twitter at Teaching Toddler. So join us again, and I hope you have a wonderful week. Thank you so much.